we had our next meeting between Saturday and Sunday, which is yesterday, and at the end, a number of issues arose from that meeting. And we decided to meet with you so that the public will know the problem going on within this university and our view of some national issues that are apparently affecting this country, our country, Nigeria. That's why we invited you to this meeting. Therefore, I will go through our write-up. Copies will be given to you later as soon as we are through. Dear compatriots and friends of the press, the Academic Staff Union of University ASUU held its National Executive Council meeting at the University of Abuja between 13th and 14th August 2021. Sorry, November 2021. During which the union interrogated the parlor state of the nation's economy, the Hydra-headed security problem in the country in general, and our universities in particular. Government's unfaithfulness in implementation of the Memorandum of Action is signed with our union, upon which the last strike action was suspended. The worsening condition of the living and working in the Nigerian university system and the nation at large. The controversial professorship appointment of Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim, and in Somalia, they put Patani, at the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, among others. The issue deserves serious and urgent attention, given that they have life-threatening implications for our members in particular, and the ordinary Nigerians and the nation in general. You're all aware of what happened in Abuja recently, in Abuja, that people could go to campuses and kidnap our member, kidnap their family, but we thank God that with the help of the branch here and the security, they were rescued. The MOA, MOU, and the 2000 agreement with the federal government of Nigeria. In another few weeks, it will be 1 year since our union patriotically suspended the 9-month strike action occasioned by the federal government refusal to implement the 2009 agreement and the several MOU and MOA. You are all aware of this, that based on the agreement we reached the government in December 2020 and the promises they made, we suspended that strike. But unfortunately, as we speak so, virtually all the items in that MOA have not been implemented. At the meeting of our union with the Honorable Minister of Labour and Employment, again, that is Dr. Chris Ikike, on Thursday, 14 October 2021, these issues, which are outstanding between ASUU and the federal government, were raised, discussed, and concrete decisions taken. Those who were there the other day, when the minister was speaking, everybody thought that within a few days, those issues would have been implemented. But let me give you the status of those issues. One, funding for revitalization of public universities. The 30 billion revitalization fund for public universities purported to have been kept in a dedicated account at the Central Bank was yet to be disbursed, even when the majority of Vice Chancellors have successfully defended their proposals as condition precedent to accessing the fund. The proposal defense exercise, which took place between 4th and 8th October 2021, was followed by a transmission of the report of the Minister of Finance to the Minister of Finance for the release of this fund. On the strength of this, representatives of the federal government gave assurance that the qualified university will get their funds on or before the end of October 2021. Surprisingly, today is 15, which is the middle of November. That fund have not been released to those universities. Two, earn academic allowance. At the meeting, the Executive Secretary of NUC informed ASUU that 22.127 billion naira have been appropriated in 2021 budget as earned allowance, academic allowances based on weighted average of annual salary appropriated for each university. It was then agreed that the Minister of Finance, that the Minister of Education would take 1 week, while the Minister of Finance would take until the end of October to ensure that this money are released to the affected universities. Similarly, as at today, that fund have not been released to the universities. University Transparency and Accountability Solution, UTAS solution. Remember, this have been on because IPs, for all those of you who have been following, found that IP is completely useless. It has created so much problem in the university and even in all the higher institutions. And we have decided that we will produce a solution that will solve this problem, which we are giving to government since January 2021. We are in November, and just the test of this program has taken 11 months, which from more education is clear that this is another attempt again to ensure that our members continue to suffer under their so-called IPs, which is creating problems to you. As we speak, so many of our colleagues are not being paid for 20-something months. Some of our colleagues are paid some salary this month, next time become a new salary, another one, which is always lower than the one they paid earlier, and so forth and so on. At that meeting, neither informed the meeting of the success of the workshop that was organized on behalf of UTAS. Neither also acknowledged the positive feedback from the end users that were present at the workshop. The meeting was further informed that neither has concluded this report, and a detail of that report will be submitted before the end of October 2021. This was to be followed by consideration and subsequent approval of UTAS for deployment by government in the university system. Unfortunately, all these reports and promises have not been implemented. Neither have not been able to come up with that report they are talking about. And like I said, this is to ensure that our members are going to suffer under IPs. 4, promotion arrears. The budget office informed the meeting that about 17 universities have been processed for payment of their outstanding promotion arrears. And that a quick action will be taken to ensure that these universities are paid, the staff in these universities are paid their promotion arrears. Unfortunately, all these reports also, as usual, have not been implemented. The arrears have not been paid to any universities as we speak. Renegotiation of 2009 agreement. Remember, our salary we are earning today is a product of 2009 agreement, which means what a lecturer was earning in 2009 when the agreement was reached is still what the average lecturer is earning today. The implication is this. As of 2009, the naira to dollar was less than 150 naira to $1. Today it's about 500, 600, which means that a professor today in Nigerian university earns less than $700 a month, from about $200 and something, $300 before, $3,000 before, to $700. How will such a person survive and be able to carry out his work effectively? So, we have reached an agreement with the government committee in May 2021, and the idea was that they will go back to their principal, that is the government that constituted that committee, to report to government and then come back to us for signing of that agreement. Since that of May till now, we've not heard from them. At that meeting, they promised that they will quickly set up a small committee to review the agreement, the draft agreement, and come back to us before the end of October. Like I said, we're also in November, and nothing has been done. Inconsistently in IPs, the same thing I mentioned that, it's still the same thing. People are still being owed. People are still being paid what, particularly the professor will pay 27,000 naira in the university as salary, and so forth. Recently, you also heard of a vice chancellor of University Lorry, who said that when IP started, they were paying him graduate assistant salary, with salary of a fresh appointee into the university. The next issue, the Patami so-called professorship, is in the air. Everybody is complaining. Everybody is talking about it. And the union decided to look at this issue. It's a person who is a serving minister, qualified to be appointed a full-time professor in a university. That is a question we need to ask that university that appointed him, and for which we need an answer. The attention of the Academic Staff Union University ASUU have been drawn to the controversy generated by the recent appointment of Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim, the current Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, as a professor of cyber security by the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. The controversial appointment reportedly followed the advertisement for employment into the position of professor and other ranks placed by the University of Technology of Owerri in the Guardian and Daily Sun newspaper of Tuesday, 2nd September 2020. Thereafter, Dr. Isa Ibrahim was alleged to have purportedly applied for the position and was subsequently appointed as a professor of cyber security in the university. The controversy this appointment has generated is unprecedented in the history of Nigerian universities. Indeed, it has generated passionate comments and responses from individuals and groups within and outside the nation. The controversy centers on the perceived role played by the FUTO University administration in the alleged fraudulent appointment and the subsequent seemingly endorsement by the ASUU branch at FUTO. Consequently, media commentators, print, electronic, and social media have continued to discuss this issue, and national body of the union decided to get all the information needed to make a public statement. That's why we have not made a statement for quite some time. We contacted the university where he worked in Nigeria before he became a minister. We also asked the branch of our colleague there in FUTO to also get the information, all the information about how he was appointed, which will include his application for that job, his CV, the result of his interview, the council decision, the departmental decision, the council decision, the faculty decision, and how he was appointed as a professor in FUTO. While the ATBU gave us his background fully up to when he left that university, to our surprise, our branch in FUTO went on air to say that he was fully qualified to be a professor in FUTO, which our national body have rejected in entirety, and we have decided to send a team since the branch could not do what we expected to do, to send a team there, gather all the information, and will come out and address the public. So that is where we are. But as at present, some of the issues we have are, and some of the questions we want the minister to answer to the Nigerian public as a serving minister in Nigeria. One, has Dr. Isa Patami met the 12-year post-qualification requirement to become a professor, as you have in that advertisement in Daily Sun? Two, does he require the relevant academic publications? The FUTO advertisement said, your publications, 70% of your publication may be on the net so that everybody can access it. Has he met the 70% web presentation of his journal publication? The question all of us need to ask ourselves, those who have worked in the government, can a serving minister, who is a full-time minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, take up a tenure appointment in a university at the same time? Is that possible? These are questions I need to answer to the public. Can a serving minister who is on seat as a minister also at the same time be serving as a full-time professor in another university? What we have in our system is that if I'm a professor and I'm appointed to a public office, I will take a leave of absence because I cannot be a serving professor in my university and a minister somewhere. So he needs to tell this public, and FUTO also to tell the public whether a serving minister can also serve as a professor full-time in their university. Now, if they say yes, is it possible for such a minister to carry out his official duty as required of a professor at the same time as a minister? Then, has Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim made the condition of teaching, supervision, mentorship, of young academics while serving as a professor and at the same time as a minister. We need to know, what did the external assessor report on the publications submitted by Dr. Insecurity say about his publications? Has always been the culture in academics. Did the university get a referees from where the man worked last in Nigeria before he became a minister? What is the general assessment of the student previously taught by him? Did the Governing Council meet the approval? Did the Governing Council meet and approve this appointment? From our record about him, where he worked before he left Nigeria, that he was promoted to the rank of Lecturer 1 in the year 2013. Lecturer 1, the year 2013. From Lecturer 1, you have to move to Senior Lecturer, move to Associate Professor before you can become a Professor. At each of these stages, you require 3 years. 2, he resigned from ATBU in 2015. He resigned. And from what we know in the record, even in the public, that he moved to a university in Saudi Arabia as an assistant professor. Assistant professor in those universities is not the same thing as actual professor. They are just a name. It's like you have assistant lecturer. Then in 2016, he became director of NIDA. He left academics. 2013, lecturer 1. 2016, he left academics and became a director, the executive DG of NIDA, which means from 2013 to 2016, when he ceased to be an academic, it's just 3 years. Which means, if Uto says right, which means that between 3 years, the man could move from becoming lecturer 1 to becoming a professor, which is against all rules. And then he became the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, whatever they call it, in the year 2019. So that is the question he himself and Futo need to tell the public. Is it possible to move from lecturer 1 to professor within 3 years of being an academic? In view of the foregoing, I haven't rejected the Futo Committee's report. Next, set up an independent committee to go to Futo to investigate fully and get all the data so that we can put it to the public. The role of Futo, the role of our members there, on how this person who spent 3 years being lecturer 1 and professor, how did he become a professor? And once that is done, the public will be informed exactly what has happened in Futo. As a union of intellectuals, we base our discussion on facts. And we want to get all these facts before we take our final decision and tell the public exactly what happened in Futo and have somebody who is a serving minister become a full-time professor. Thank you. Next one is the continuing neglect and proliferation of universities. Setting up university globally is not just a cheap business. Hence, the import of adequate funding of university cannot be emphasized. Regrettably, it has become fashionable in Nigeria for both federal and state government to set, and even private, to set up universities without any intention to fund them. Annual budgetary allocation to the educational sectors are scandalously low and underscore the nation's lack of seriousness by educating its citizens and youth. It is no longer news that the federal government allocation to education has been on the continuous slide in the last 10 years, coming as low as below 6% in this last one, 2021. Given the steady devaluation of the Naira and the parallel inflation, it is obvious that this so-called statement made by the President somewhere, I think in France or one of the European countries, that he was going to increase budgetary allocation by 50% each year in the next 2 years, even assume he decided to do that, it will also come to nothing. But we know they will not do it. The budget proposal for 2022 has shown that the promise he made there to the whole world was not captured in the 2022 budget. While universities, particularly those owned by the state, are primed to continuously exploit students through the commercialization of education, in the disguise of internally generated revenue to fund their personnel costs, capital projects have no place in the owner's priority project. None of the states, as of today, is interested in funding their education, their universities. In those days, the governors, there was no third fund, will set up a university, they will build the capital project, give running costs, pay salary, and still develop their universities. But today we have governors who are supposed to just fund what had been built by your predecessor, but they all now depend on third fund as the main source of funding and exploiting the children, the students, as main source of funding. And to compound the problem, if you go around today, in some states, remember, just 2 weeks ago, in Abia State, the last time our colleagues have been paid in Abia State is April 2021. But the state governor 3 weeks ago established 3 new universities overnight. University of Education, Arochukwu, University of Medical Sciences, Aba, University of Science and Technology, Aba. How can one state have 2 universities in one city? The nation is currently harvesting on unprecedented scale of privatization and commercialization of university education in Nigeria. The model varies from dependence on over 1 billion back loan, as you have in the case of Malete, for the settlements of monthly wage bill, to raising tuition fee by 120% by the Ondo State University of Sciences. That university have increased their fee to more than 1 million. In a country where the average wage of worker, when you see the minimum wage, if you take the average wage of Nigeria today, it's not up to 50,000 naira per month. If you do the average, the high and the low, it's not up to 50,000 per month. And you want those people to pay school fees of between 2 and 3 million. Where would the money come from? And that is a university owned by a state. For ASUU, proper conceptualization and planning for the funding of new universities by federal and state government are irreducible, minimum, and must be more categorical imperative before that universities are formed. We have actually reviewed the NUC law to ensure that it will be difficult for state universities, for state governors to just wake up and start university and university to take over. But it's with National Assembly and they are doing nothing about it. So we should also help put pressure on them to ensure that those laws are passed so that we can have what look like university and not what you are seeing today. A governor that cannot fund a university, you wake up and establish 3. Delta State wake up one morning and start and establish 3. One in Agbo, one in Asaba, one in Ozoro. For what? And now, this idea of 3-3 have come up. I'm sure in the next 1 year, you are going to see more than other 5-6 governors establish 3-3 per day. And we have been told, those of you who were reported by the media, that as of today we have more than 54 bills at the House of Representatives on establishment of federal universities. How can a country survive in such a... State of the nation. It is not an exaggeration to say insecurity in the country is gradually becoming the norm. There's hardly a day that killing either of security personnel or civilians are not reported. The security architecture in the country has almost collapsed. Just last Friday, that's 13 November 2021, it was reported that senior military officers, along with others, military personnel, were killed by men reported to be members of ISWAP. It was well known, a Major General and co. These killings are going on unabated across every region of the country, and citizens no longer feel safe anywhere in the country. ASUU is particularly worried by the insistent attack on our educational institutions, especially the universities. Not too long ago, a young pregnant lady, a pharmacist, and staff of Mount Bello University Hospital was adopted and killed. The reign of terror unleashed on schools and colleges in states like Niger, Kaduna, Zamfara, Borno, and Yobe have not only caused distress to the family of family whose children and what were abducted for ransom, but had discouraged schooling and compounded the problem of out-of-school children. The recent kidnapping of 3 professors, 1 registry staff, and some members, family members of our staff in Abuja epitomize the uncontrollable wave of insecurity that have enveloped our educational institutions from primary to universities. Government failure to secure the schools, colleges, and universities will sound the death knell of our fragile education system. Staff residential quarters on our campuses are least befitting of academic community of the 21st century. Apart from the dilapidated facilities, many of the quarters are embarrassingly porous, making them prime target for criminals, hoodlums, kidnappers, and other criminal elements. Until recently, the University of Calabar staff were perennially attacked across a river, those who have been to Calabar. Senior epidemics were reported in University of Maiduguri, University of Sokoto, that is Usman Dan Fodio University Sokoto, and some other universities. In these and other instances, some of our kidnapped members never come back to tell the stories. In Uni Abuja, the story is a wake-up call on government to address simmering insecurity situation in Nigerian university campuses. Way back in 2012, issues related to the dilapidation of facilities and insecurity on our campuses were comprehensively documented by the federal government need assessment of public university. Though the federal government agreed that with ASUU to release the sum of 1.3 trillion over a 6-year period, only 115 billion have so far been released, making it impossible to address the documented rot and decay in our university campuses. The minimum of perimeter fencing of Uni Abuja and other campuses should be effected without further delay. In addition, there should be thorough investigation of the Uni Abuja kidnap and other incidences with a view of bringing all those involved to justice and preventing future occurrences. In addition, there is a need for government to consider the following options to end the menace of insecurity in our educational system and the nation at large. 1, porous border around northwest and northeast must be adequately secured to mitigate the spread of terrorist and bandit activities from neighboring countries. 3, illicit proliferation of weapons must be genuinely curtailed through sincere implementation of the legislation on this area. Income inequality, rising poverty, and youth unemployment must be addressed to solve this problem because insecurity has a positive and strong correlation with poverty and unemployment. There was a quote by somebody that any country that neglects its education is creating room for insecurity. And that's exactly where we are today in this country. Increased political will and determination to end insecurity to disprove the popular claim that if insecurity lasts for more than 24 hours, the government has a hand in it. The government must take the bull by the horns and end insecurity within the country. Increasing debt and worsening living conditions. The rate at which the current regime is borrowing, it will say the least reckless. According to Debt Management Office, Nigerian debt profile started at 33.107 trillion naira. As it stands, the productive capacity of the real sector of the economy is at its lowest. No country can develop when it borrows from domestic and international community to fund its budget, especially the current budget. While public debt is rising, the cost of governance is skyrocketing. In order to stem this tide of reckless borrowing, there is the need to declare austerity measures on government apparatuses and drastically reduce the cost of government, but should be in no way add to the burden of the impoverished citizen. We are in a country where legislators who have all the apparatus or everything free, your transport, your accommodation free, still receive in their salary structure what is referred to as hardship allowance. While the driver, who have nothing, does not have hardship allowance. So when you have such a structure, how will that country have peace? You have a governor who collects hundreds of millions in quote, a security vote. Security vote, and you have nothing to do with that money to secure that state. These are the things the country should be asking those governors. You collect 900 million every month as security vote. You should ensure that every citizen in your state should be free, should be safe, should be safe. But they don't do anything about security. Nigerians are today finding it extremely difficult to feed because of the exorbitant prices of food items and cooking gas, which are daily on the rise. We were told, especially cooking gas, that the reason why you are having increase is because they introduce VAT on cooking gas. And the question I've asked myself, from what I've seen, the price of gas has risen more than 300%. I hope I'm right. But VAT is just 7.5%. So how can increase of something by 7.5% result in 300% increase? These are questions we should ask those who run this country. The advantages of this worrisome trend, especially on the growing children, are quite enormous. The evidence abounds in poor growth outcome, reduced immunity, and general poor health outcome are disseminating among families today. Add to this is the poor take-home pace of Nigerian working class, which can hardly take their home. Nigeria had never had it so bad. The recently negotiated new minimum wage has been rendered useless by rising cost of living, even as most government workers at both federal and state level are yet to be paid the benchmark salary and its consequential adjustment benefit. The living condition in all its ramifications indeed call for a state of emergency that should be thus treated. Great countries in the world partner with their best brain to solve their challenges, including high cost of living. State and federal governments should be sincere enough to seek solutions to these problems in Nigeria by engaging the intellectual bodies, especially the academia, to find solutions to the presently worrisome state of the country. In conclusion, comrades and compatriots, the federal government and ASUU, the federal government, ASUU, comrades and compatriots, ASUU is fully committed to upholding academic integrity in our university and working to make them more globally competitive. We are equally committed to promoting industrial harmony in the Nigerian university system for as long as all stakeholders are willing and committed to play their part. We call on all vice chancellors as the main driver of the system to join us in this mission to safeguard the winning image of our university. They have no business trading honorary degrees and academic positions, such as the one we have just seen in the professorship, for their immediate gain, thereby smearing the collective integrity of the committed scholar and other patriots who are working day and night to upbuild the system that produced them. Our nation shall not shy away from taking the fight. Our union shall not shy away from taking the fight to the administrator of Nigerian University, as well as the internal and external agents who are bent on compromising the standard of ASUU that ASUU has set over time. Finally, we call on all patriotic Nigerians and lovers of Nigeria to prevail on the federal government and state government to act fast to prevent another round of crisis in the Nigerian university system. It is painful that our union may soon have no other way of securing the pension of FGN collective bargain agreement and redressing the criminal neglect of welfare of our members by state government. Government of Nigeria should be held responsible should ASUU be forced to activate a strike. It's patriotically suspended on 23rd November 2021. Thank you for listening, and you're welcome.